SEMA had a series of education tracks, and I was invited to be on one of the panels. I'm about to step into the Restoration Builders panel. Exciting for me because it's some of the best builders in the world and an audience that's interested.
I have a guy who is Mr. One-Liner. He is just like he is on television. He is not a shortage for words. He is passionate about everything he's involved in. He has an amazing shop in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm talking about extraordinary. I'm talking about epic. I'm talking about high ceilings, crown molding. If I could move in, I'd move in. We're talking about being on television for over 10 years. It's called FantomWorks. His name is Dan Short. Give him a round.
Sabra Johnson, Steve Cook, Art Morrison, Bob Smith, and I talked about our experiences with car restoration and especially running car restoration businesses. Full restoration panel was recorded by SEMA, and you can check it out on their site. After the panel, Bob from CoachWorks and I answered some more questions about running car restoration businesses. Let me tell you what I've discovered is you sort of create a niche for your own business. Absolutely. How did you create $1 million Ferrari niches? Because that's a hard world to break into.
That's for sure. Well, going back, I guess the best way is winning shows. But then everybody's out wanting a piece of you, just like what you said. And then you have to learn to say, well, where do I draw the line? Well, what happens is real easy, real quick to get overbooked. And then you got trying to meet this show, meet this race, this rally. And then how do you plug all that into the calendar? Well, somebody's going to have to wait. Well, they don't want to hear that. So just like I said earlier, if I throw more money at it, can you get it done faster? Well, there's so many hours in the day.
Right.
Exactly.
And you get to the level of what we're doing, I just can't call up and get a set of seats. Well, because we have to have the leather made special or this done and that done. Mm-hmm. And it just goes on and on and on. So to get there, it's taking 30 plus years from getting started. Winning shows has been a plus, but then you've got to sort out the customers and how you do that. It's painful.
Our challenge was we had to be true to the cars, and building cars is tough, right? Dealing with clients, dealing with expectations, and now you've got to do that in front of a camera. So I felt like a referee. And there was like 6 wrestling matches going on, and I was the referee on all 6. I had to interject myself between cameras and employees, between employees and employees, between customers and cameras. We had clients wanting to come on and have their car built just to get on TV. And if I recognized that and I figured it out, I would kick them and their car out. I wanted people who actually love the car, because at the end of the day, have you had a client that you found out didn't really love the car and was just, he had expectations that you couldn't meet?
We got fired.
Okay, yeah. And I have to fire customers all the time.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out at the end of the day, can you really meet their expectations? Can your crew do the job? Can the budget support the build? And if you start getting red flags showing up, as painful as it is to have a client who goes, I've got $100,000 here. If at the end of the day you know that he is expecting 150, you got to watch that $100,000 walk out the door. You got to.
It's painful.
So I'm going to guess that the first Ferrari that you had that you brought to the level of winning a show, because we built some Ferraris, and I actually wanted out of that world because the expectations of the clients were unrealistic. And at least the ones that I met. I mean, I've got Lamborghini, Ferrari, and Maseratis, right. and I'll tell you, I'm more comfortable in the world of Chevrolet. In all honesty,
well, Chevrolets are my favorite too.
Well, I love building them. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Ferraris and the Maseratis, they're gorgeous cars, but the parts. For instance, we built a 68. I can't remember. It was You'll know the car better. We built the prototype mother,
Queen Mother?
the Queen Mother. We had to rebuild the prototype Queen Mother. The electrical work on the car, the guy wanted it rewired for 20 grand. Nobody builds the harness. It has to be individually done with oxygen-free wiring. And I talked to a man who specialized in Ferrari wiring, and he said his start price was $125 just to rewire the car. The man expected us to rewire it for 20 grand or less. And I just said, I just don't want to deal with people that are insane. So, but how did you take and build $1 million car to win a show? How did you get the money to do that? Because for me, that's the challenge.
Well, to get to that level, we don't give you an estimated price.
I don't either.
We got a blank check. And they want us, well, do you have an idea how much it may be? Well, the car's going through the shop. To do one of those, it's going to take anywhere from, depending on condition, what we have to do, can be anywhere from 6,000, 8,000 hours, maybe 9,000, depending on the condition. You take that, multiply that by the shop rate, and then you can do a little bit of an inventory of parts, and then they'll tell you where it's going to be. And then the parts is a tough deal. Okay.
Especially today.
You don't come to SEMA and find Ferrari parts. But I love to come to the show. It's a trip. But going to swap meets, because we go to swap meets in Europe all the time. I've been going to swap meets in Europe for 30 plus years.
And can I guess that probably 90% of the parts you source are used parts?
Today, most of them are. But in the day when I used to go there, I bought new stuff.
Right, but today, what you're finding is the best used parts available in the world to recreate the thing that is just so worn out you can't rebuild it. But I would imagine you're restoring a lot more parts than you're replacing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's something. Which is cheaper, to replace or to restore on most cars?
Well, depends when you say much. If you're doing a Chevrolet, that's easy. I mean, I love those guys.
Yeah.
That's what you can call up and get. But
Yeah.
stuff we go to Europe traveling or to parts, jamborees, whatever. And I'll go, and Rain goes with me. And I'm digging under the tables. I'm going through this. There's no part numbers. I just know what it is. And we'll put a little pile of stuff. And the guy said, she speaks Italian. And she'll negotiate and says, okay, he wants 50 euros. No problem. I pay him 50 euros. I would give him 100 euros.
Oh, easily.
For parts.
You got to be very careful not to get too excited when you find a part. I was just at a flea market, and a guy had a pair of correct 63 Corvette Carter AFBs. Now, the bodies to those are worth about $500 a piece in rough shape. These were actually really nice. I said, what do you want for me? He goes, $100. And by the way, he also had a dual quad intake for a 59 Corvette. He didn't know what any of it was, and he said $100. Is it worth it? And I went, yeah. And because if you go, oh, hell, let me tell you, the price will triple on you in a second.
Oh, yeah.
So I would imagine Ferrari parts.
Well, it's the same thing, but when we go there, I'll be looking because of some of the genetic parts like lights, fuses, electrical pieces, switches, are also on Alphas and Fiats, and they'd be on some other cars.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm looking for, and but I don't. We go as travelers.
Yeah, you don't wear that.
No. Anyway, and look at stuff, and he said, "What kind of car you work? What are you working on?" I said, "Oh, Fiat."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because the price will double, and then some of the guys is they won't sell it to you.
Oh,
I've run into that. Oh no.
I've gone and looked at a part, and I'm like, what do you want for this? And they're like, oh, you must know something about it. I've had them grab it and take it back. They refuse to sell it to me. First of all, they recognize me. That's the curse of the TV show. But if they'll sell it to me, in many cases, it's offered to me at triple the price of anybody else.
One of the other things, if you're not careful with, there's a lot of reproduction stuff.
It's junk, a lot of it.
Well, it can be junk, but they'll take a lens that's reproduction and put it in another body. And if you're not careful, you go, oh, you kind of not say get excited.
Right.
You'll be looking and you'll look at it and say, I'm not sure. And then I'll come back and look at, I don't want that one.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a lot of dealers. They come every year, or we come every year. And I'll call them up because you establish a relationship, and they'll say, hey, I'm needing this, this, and this, and they'll have it under the table for me.
Yeah.
And then the other trick is once you know who the boss is that's over the show, is I know how to get in early before everybody gets there.
That's early bird gets the worm.
Oh yeah, there'll
So-
be stuff that that we find or whatever.
So, look, there's 1,000 challenges, and I agree with everything said on stage. You got to treat employees right. You got to. I mean, we've not only done barbecues just to introduce them to. Look, you stay with us. You do great things. You help us make money, and you can see more of this. So we've tried everything, and some worked, and some didn't. And I don't have time to tell you about all of our failures. But if I can, a couple things you got to be willing to do. You got to be willing to lose a draw. I rarely have a client come up and say, I'm not going to pay for this or I'm not going to do that. And if you can sort of see from their perspective that they have a case, I just let them win. I don't usually try. Now, I've had clients, though, that dent wasn't in my car. And that's when you show them the photograph of them in their car on the day it arrived in the dent. And at that point, I've got no tolerance for those. And I'm unapologetic about scammers and thieves that come into me. So I try not to ever fight with a client. And if they've got a foot to stand on, I try and figure out how can I make them happy, but then like I've had many clients then after they were really crappy come back and say, hey, Dan, I need you to do this. I'm sorry, we're all booked up. So you got to learn how to, to me, if there was one thing you got to figure out is you got to look to the day you're going to deliver the car. Is what they're asking for, is the budget, and I don't give them a budget ever. They give me a budget. And they'll always try and turn it around. I'm like, look, buddy, I've done 6,000 cars and you're the 6,000th person that's asked me. So let me explain to you, you're not going to win. You either give me a budget or we don't start on your car. And if their budget is stupid low, I don't negotiate. I just say, go away. So you got to look at the end, at the budget, at the client, at the car, and you got to make a decision right there. Are we going to part well at the end? And if things are looking good, then take the car on and build it. If there are red flags on the field already, I cut my losses right there and say, you know what? You probably need to go somewhere else and get your car built. And we turn away over 99% of our clients. Now, did the TV show allow me to say that? Yeah, because we used to say we turned away 75% of our clients, but we now turn away over 99%. And we're in a position to do that. So did the TV show help that? Absolutely. But you got to be willing to say no. And let me tell you, it's hard to do sometimes when you got bills to pay, you got employees that want raises, you got a leaking roof, you need money, you need capital, and you're staring at money, and you still have to say no. So good luck with that one.
Question on hourly. Do you break down like paint and body is this, and metalwork is this, and interior work is this, or are you straight across the board for something?
Straight across the board.
I am
If
too.
it's 100 an hour, it's 100 an hour for everything.
Well, it's like this. The guy that's putting the engine together, that's the mechanic, but the parts have to be clean. Okay, so you hire somebody that you're paying less. Well, he doesn't clean it like it needs to be. So the mechanic, he's complaining, well, I'll just clean it next time myself. That's one. It's like the guys in the body shop is, okay, one's stripping the car and then it's going to be sandblasted. Well, rather than having your painter to do it, you have somebody else do it. So you pay him a little less, but he doesn't get it. The painter says, well, I've got to spend 3 or 4 hours doing what the other guy. So hire somebody that's quality and all work together, and nobody's lower than somebody else. It's all a team.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes into running a restoration business than just restoring the cars. The calculations can drive you batty or out of business. I'm always walking that tightrope between what's best and fair for the car, the client, and our crew.
We used to bill at different rates. It's complicated. It starts getting messy. And so what I found was at the end of the day, I sort of look at what my costs are for the good guy, for the guy that's doing my cleanup work. Like I pay guys that do nothing more than put stuff in the sandblaster, and I'm not going to charge them the same rate as a tech who's building, a $5,000 set of downdrafts or side drafts, right? So I'm going to pay my guys differently. but I try and average it out. And as a rule, my labor rate is very fair to everyone at the end of the day. And we do a lot of things, like all of our part searches, we don't bill for that. All of our management, we don't bill for that. Some of the things that we should be billing for, we don't bill for. So at the end of the day, I think we're actually billing about 80% of the hours. There's 20% of the hours that aren't billed, and so that's how I sort of justify the rate at the end of the day. I only call people when I'm willing to take in a car, and my wait list for you depends on whether you're insane or not. I don't want them till they've been to another shop that told them they would build a car for 25 grand, and here they are $160,000 later, halfway done. And that's when I want the client, because somebody has given them a reality check, and I don't want to be that guy fighting with them. See, to me, there is no such thing as a paint job.
Exactly. Right.
So I wrote a letter for people to say I want a paint job, and the letter is about 3 paragraphs long, a little over half a page, but it says, paint changes everything. And I explained to them in the letter that a paint job, we start with 100 hours of breaking your car apart and labeling and shelving all the parts. Then we go in and remove the drivetrain and put it on a dolly. Then it gets transported out and we blast it down, and it has to be blasted by someone who knows what they're doing. Then it has to be epoxy coated, and then we start the metal work. And then after the metal work is done, we start the 6 months of body work. And then when the body work is done, there's the spraying and the cutting and the buffing, and then you have to put it all back together. So at the end it says, so paint jobs under $100,000 are a fantasy. Because if what you want is the $10,000 paint job, go to Earl Scheib, because Earl Scheib is now doing $10,000 to $20,000 paint jobs. Maaco, you can easily drop 20 grand at Maaco now. The reality is you actually earn their trust more by trying to help them through the process. I talk way more of my clients out of things than into things.
We had to wrap up to clear the room for the next panel. I always enjoy the opportunity to talk to folks who appreciate the restoration process. We also recorded some in the SEMA exhibit hall, and I ran into country singer Craig Morgan. Check it out on our YouTube channel. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, and click all that notification bell stuff so you don't miss our new releases and live streams.